Okay. Earlier today, I watched a video, and in the comments, somebody was wanting to know how to make an extract with herbs. And so I decided to go ahead and make this video on how to make a tincture, which is an alcohol extract, or in this case, apple cider vinegar. I hope I'm not being too quiet. My kids are asleep. So we will hopefully get through this without waking them up. As you can see from my notes here, I have already made one with the actual alcohol. And I've got that bottle right here. And I'm going to show what that looks like at the end. But before I get into what all is in front of me here, I want to explain what you're looking at here in my notes. Okay. The recipe for making a tincture is a ratio and a percentage. Okay. The ratio, the first number is herb, and the second number is how much liquid to use. The percentage is the percentage of alcohol. Okay. So, for example, I have here in front of me a 1/8 cup scoop. Okay. So for ginger, if I were using the 1/8 cup scoop for the one, I would use 5 of these for the alcohol. Very simple. Okay. Now, in terms of the 50%, we all know that there are a plethora of choices in alcohol out there. You do not want to use something that has its own flavor. Everclear and vodka are truly the best. And I know this one from experience. I actually used a bourbon once. And the way you tell that a tincture is done is it no longer smells like alcohol. And the problem with bourbon is with its own flavor is you can't, even though you're smelling the herb, you're still smelling the alcohol too. It doesn't go away. So it's harder to tell when the tincture is ready to be used if you're using an alcohol that has its own characteristics. Now, apple cider vinegar, when making a tincture, is treated as being 100%. And it also has its own characteristics. So you get that extra added benefit when using the apple cider vinegar. The problem with using it is it's not as strong in terms of the alcohol and being able to get those constituents out of the herb. That's the medicinal properties that you're trying to get out when using this type of medicinal modality, I would say here. Okay, so when you're using cups, this is considered the folk method. If you notice here in my notes, it says herb with a G in parentheses. That is weight. I use the weight volume method, which means using a scale. Okay. And the reason being is it's more precise. And the more precise you are in your measurements, the higher the likelihood that you're going to duplicate the same results next time you do it. So if you're just doing it for home use, go ahead, by all means, use the cup. If you are wanting to learn how to do this for sales purposes, you want to use the weight volume method. Okay. And if you see here, we have this word menstruum in milliliters, spirits, which is the alcohol, in milliliters, and distilled water in milliliters. Okay. Now, if you read my notes, Last time I did this, I actually had 50% alcohol. So I didn't need distilled water. Menstruum is just a fancy name for the liquid that's used. When you're using the alcohol that's the same percentage, then you don't need distilled water. However, we're using alcohol or apple cider vinegar, which is 100% this time around. Okay, that means for distilled water, it needs to be a 50-50 split between alcohol and the distilled water to break it down to that 50%. Yes, there's math involved in these. There are books out there that people have already done all the measurements for you. If you want to go that route as well, this is the way I was taught when I went to school. You want your date started and your date strained because generally there's at least a 2-week period. And I say at least because depending on what it is that you're making, it could be longer. Like I said, the way you know that it's done is you can smell the herb and not the alcohol. So it could be 2 weeks, it could be 4 weeks, 6 weeks. One of the examples in the book I read on how to do this the professional way, the weight volume way, she had one tincture that took 5 months before it was ready. Now the thing with tinctures is they can be underdone, but there's no such thing as being overdone. So if you don't strain it at that 2-week mark and you leave it sitting there in the alcohol, it's not going to do any harm. But if you strain it too early, it's not going to be as strong as it could be. Okay. I think that's everything on that one. Now in my notes down here, I was trying to break out how much it would cost to make it. But the reason I'm pointing this out, because down here, if you notice, each of these packages from school weighs 1 ounce. Okay, 1 ounce equates to 28.3495 grams, which makes the math easy on knowing how much liquid to put in there. And here is my quick math. I basically divided the number by 2 for that, multiplied that by 5 because that was the ratio, and for both my apple cider vinegar and my distilled water, that's how much I need of each. Now, I bought this nifty little thing here. This is actually a bartender's measuring cup. And we're using milliliters, but I turned it that way so you could see all the nifty little things that were on there. So basically, I need to fill it up to as close to 70.8 as I can. And that's where I've got it. Now, there are more precise devices out there. I just don't have them yet. I have a bit of a budget, so just doing the best I can with what I have available to get this stuff done. Okay. All right, I generally use mason jars, but in this case, I'm just reusing a glass honey jar. Okay. Oh, and I brought this out to show you that when measuring the liquid using cups, This is the liquid measuring cup. This is the solid measuring cup. You have no idea how many people do not know the difference. But there is that. Okay, and that's where I am on the water, about the same location. So again, now generally we put the herb in first and then put the liquid in, but it doesn't really matter that much. Another note on the liquid, okay, now most of the recipes are going to say 1 and 5. However, depending on what you're working with, the herbs may absorb that quickly and you're going to need to put more in there. So after the first day, you look at it again and see where you're at. And if you don't see any liquid covering your herb, you need to add more to it. It's very important that you keep the herb completely covered. And you got to be shaking your herb in the jar 3 times a day for that duration. Okay? 1 second, and we will switch to some of these other tools. Okay, the reason we generally put the herb in the jar first is because when you're doing the weight volume method, what you do, you weigh your jar, okay? Then you hit that 0 button. And then you add the herb to the jar to figure out how much your herb actually weighs. And then from there, you would go ahead and take it off and you'd pour the liquid on top. Okay? But there are 2 methods with which to prepare your herb. This one most people haven't seen since high school, the mortar and pestle. You put the herb in there and you just scrape it against the bottom and the sides until it's as small as you want it. Okay? In today's day of modern tools, we have this wonderful gadget. Okay? Okay, again, the children are asleep, so I'm only going to hit this thing once. But I want to show you what the dehydrated ginger root looks like. Okay? Very thin, hard. See that? Okay. So let's go ahead and see how small we can make it with just that. Okay. And that's how small it came out, but that's all right. Ooh, I can smell the ginger. Ooh, that was okay. I have it in the jar now. Give it a nice good shake. Okay. Look at that. It is well coated, well covered. Okay. So you just store this in a dark place and shake it 3 times a day for 2 weeks. And then you smell it and you see how well it's coming along. If it isn't done yet, you don't strain it yet. Okay? Now, since we just put it in there, I'm not going to actually demonstrate the straining portion. A lot of people will use coffee filters, cheesecloth. What I use is a flour towel. You can find it in the kitchen department of Walmart. I think they come in 2 or 3 packs, I forget. They tell you to use the cheesecloth and fold it over 4 times because some of the herbs you're working with are going to be really fine and you don't want to get those hairs to go through. So I just take the flour towel, I do that, fold it over 4 layers, and it works really, really well. I get a really clean straining. And what I do is I still use this, okay? And I just put that on top. I form a well and pour the liquid in. And then once I have it all through, I'll pick this up, twist it around, and squeeze it. Because I also want to know what the yield is for each batch, so I can check my consistencies. So that's why I do it that way. You don't have to put it back in there. You know, that's up to you. The last thing I wanted to demonstrate is the bottling process. Okay, again, this is my tincture that I made with the alcohol. And just to show you what it looks like, well, let me use this one because that's actually clean, hasn't had the apple cider vinegar in it. That's what the finished product looks like right there. Okay, and the bottling process, I bought these glass funnels. These are 50 milliliter funnels. Okay, and you want to put them in there at a little bit of an angle. See how that's not completely straight on? That helps with free flowing. Okay, and then you just pour a little at a time, because if you're not watching, you can overfill it, and then you have a nice little mess on your hands. And I'm actually just going to stop right there. And that is a bottle of ginger tincture. Okay. Now, labeling process. You can label as you want to, but again, I used Whisper's book. So on there, what she suggests is to write on the top what it is, and then in the corner over there the recipe you used, and then at the very bottom what the dosage is, and then in the middle what you use it for. Now on my bottles, some of what you use it for is too long to fit on the labels, so there's a lot of abbreviations and some things get left out. However, on the back side of my notes, I have all that information. Okay. What it's used for, what its properties are, what the safety things are you need to take into account. And this goes for all of my herbs. This is actually a 5-subject notebook that I have a whole bunch of herbs in, and some of them have this information complete, some of them don't. The ones that I have made a tincture for already are complete back here. And we'll have something in the notes as well. I can't think of anything I missed on the tincture side. If you want me to discuss the other ways of using herbs and how you know which ways to use an herb and which ways not to use an herb, I can do more videos along these lines. I know there's a lot of these types of videos out there, and I don't want to step on other people's toes. For those of you watching this on YouTube, I will tell you under the About page, I believe it has my website. I write a blog, and I try to write it daily, where I talk about all this types of information. I'll pick an herb, I'll showcase it, and I'll actually break down what these constituents do, what these actions mean. I have listings of indications and you can specifically look up motion sickness, for example, and see what herbs there are that fit that bill. There is no such thing as an indication that will only have one herb to it. There are always multiple herbs for each thing. I started this website while I was still in school. I believe I started it last March, and then my daughter deleted my page and I had to restart it again in April. So, and I finished school in December. So it's been going for a little while. So there's a lot of information up there, and I'm still going through herbs that I got from my lab kits. As you can see, this is from the apothecary shop of the school I attended, and I'm still ordering herbs from them to for my own personal use. I think I only have 5 herbs left from my lab kits to go through, and then I'll start getting suggestions from my readers. So if you're interested in that type of stuff, that's where I generally hang out. But again, if you want to know more specifics on making these things, I'm more than willing to do up those videos as well. Just say something in the comments or hop over to my website and send me a message through the contact me, and I can respond that way as well. And that's all I have for you right now. I hope you enjoyed this video. Bye-bye.